Today I am practicing some grafting. Now I'm doing it indoors in a carport or garage because even though at the moment it's sunny outside, it's in the 40s and there's just enough of a northerly wind that it's just a little bit cool, and I'd rather be comfortable doing almost anything. I mean, who wants to be uncomfortable? So I'm just in here. It's a little bit warmer and don't have the wind. So I've got a big toolbox that I've got all my grafting tools and equipment and stuff in. I am by no means a pro at this. This is really only my second time doing very many trees. I did about 30 last year. Had some success, and about the time that I needed to keep an eye on them and be maintaining them better, some family issues came up, and I pretty much ended up abandoning them, and I figured they were all gone. But surprisingly, some of the rootstock survived, and even a few of the grafts seem to have survived. So I may have a plum or two, a pear or two, and about 3 apples that may have taken that I can then do something with. I've already potted at least some of those up into bigger pots. This year I'm trying 30 once again, 10 plum, 10 pear, and 10 apple. I've already done the plums and the pears, and I'm working on the apples at this time. Now, the pots that I'm using are these very tall kind of tree pots, so they give a lot of room for the roots and stuff, and that's what I had the ones, and they overwintered outside. And we had, for Arkansas, a couple of pretty good freezes, and they survived even in these. So I'm encouraged by that. The mix that I'm using, I like, for whatever reason right now, I seem to be stuck on Kellogg. And so I've been using a raised bed mix for most things. They were out of that at the big box store, so I got this, and actually I kind of like this a little better. I don't know that there's actually a whole lot of difference in what's in the different mixes. It just seems to be how much because the primarily ground up wood is the primary ingredient, it seems like. This one's also got some peat and some sphagnum in it, as well as like some worm castings and stuff. And this one seems to be, at least these bags, seem to be ground up a little bit finer. So I'm kind of liking that. With the raised bed mix, it seems to really change with the batch. Some of them are very, very coarse. I've had some of the raised bed mix that looked almost like this. There's a few fewer of these big chunks in this all natural planting mix than there is in the raised bed mix, but there's still some. Now this is a 1.5 cubic foot bag. The raised bed mix that's in the pink and yellow usually comes in a 2 cubic foot. I haven't actually, sat down and just did the calculation to see what the cost differential is, if they're essentially the same cost or different cost, per cubic foot. But, so there's that. Let me turn this around a little bit so I can see myself. This way I can get both hands free. So, now this is the rootstock. So you basically got a stick with a few bare roots on it. Like I said, I ordered 10 of each. This one, and I got it from Burnt Ridge Orchard. That's who I ordered from last year. This time it took a while to get them. I mean, I should have been doing this late January, early February. It's now the end of March, and I just got these about 3 days ago, so I'm just using them as fast as I can. I'm going ahead and grafting them. I'm hoping that, at least the rootstock will survive. If the graft takes, that'll be wonderful. It'll be awesome. If for any reason the graft does not take, as long as the rootstock survives, then at least I'll have them for the future. But this is an apple rootstock. It is M26 EMLA 26. It's a dwarfing apple rootstock, and So it creates a dwarf tree, usually 10 to 12 foot. I'm really not too worried about whether it's dwarfing, semi-dwarfing, or standard, because I'm going to be pruning these. I'm probably going to be espaliering. Anything that survives and I plan out is probably going to end up espaliered. So I really don't care about the dwarfing capability of the rootstock. The one good thing about using a dwarf rootstock, at least in the beginning, is it should come into production a little bit faster, if I understand correctly. It won't live as long, but it will come into production faster. One thing I'm practicing learning how to do this. One thing I've thought about doing once I get established down there is maybe 1 year pick either a specific fruit, an apple, a pear, plum, whatever. Pick a fruit and pretty much order every rootstock that I can find that might possibly be appropriate for my area. Dwarf, semi-dwarf, standard, all the different pest resiliences, drought resilience, all that kind of stuff, and plant them out, whether they're grafted or not. Preferably go ahead and graft them, but might as well. But plant them out and see what does best in my area. So if I could come up with 2 apple rootstock that I know do very, very well in this area, then I've got the base of my tree, decided. And then I can graft whatever I want on top of it. The limit to the varieties of apple is not an issue because I can graft that onto anything. I'd also like to do some, just actual non-grafted fruit as well. But for right now, in the beginning, to get an orchard, get a productive orchard going, stick with some rootstock. So that's what I'm using here. Once I've got the graft done, I'll label it and I'll show that. So here's the way I'm doing it right now. I do have 2 or 3 different grafting tools and of course a knife. These are large enough for me to use this. On the pears, even the rootstock was very, very, very small. And so really they were too small for any of these kinds of things. So I just used a regular knife and just did, a slice up and gave me kind of, a fairly steep, but a nice little slice on it. Did the same on the scion and then just put them together. The scions, the cuttings that I have, all came from my yard or the community garden that I had in Marion. Some of them, I don't know what the variety is. This one came out of my front yard. I planted 2 apple trees out there. I know and I've still got the tags, but I don't know which one was which. So this might be a Mutsu, which kind of a green, mainly green with a little bit of red, or it may be another one. So I'm just gonna have to label this as, apple front yard, Marion. I don't really know. But again, at this stage, this is practice. This is not production. I don't plan on selling these. So I'm doing kind of a rough version. I mean, I'm not disinfecting between every cut and all that kind of stuff right now. I'm learning the technique of how to cut it, how to join them, how to stabilize them, things of that nature. Now, this particular cutter, you've got different profiles. Some will do just a straight V. This one does a V with a little bit of round on the bottom. I've got one that on the bottom of it makes a little bit more of a bulb, which might help it, kind of lock in and hold together a little longer while you're doing the mechanical joining to hold it in place. I've got a larger version of this, and it's got some cutters that'll make 2 V's. So it's like 2 notches that are a little bit off cut. So there's all different kinds of, if you're just doing joins like this, different styles. I remember last year spending a lot of time watching videos, read a couple of books, stuff like that, trying to learn it. And when you look at the people who do this a whole lot and have done it for years or decades, they tend not to use the gadgets. There may be a place and a time for that, and maybe in high production, greenhouses and nurseries. But the ones, at least I've seen the videos and some of that, they've pretty much got their technique down, whatever the differences are. And for the most part, A grafter's knife is all they use. And a grafter's knife is essentially just a good sharp regular blade, but instead of a bevel on both sides, it's flat on one side, beveled on the other, and that's pretty much, and you can regrind any decent nice knife to get that profile, and that's pretty much what they use. And that's what I was using. It's a Swiss Army, I'll say it's Swiss, well, looks like it's a Felco. It's actually a Felco knife, and then it can also be used for bud grafting, which I'm not getting into. But anyway, so here, at first I was going pretty high, and I've come down a little bit because, I mean, there's already buds for more shoots, and I don't really want shoots coming off of my rootstock. And when you buy trees that have, you know, at the big box, if you buy a fruit tree, Walmart, big box, nursery, anywhere you buy, I guarantee you that 99.9% of them are grafted, and you can actually see the graft at the bottom. And I say that because if they tell you the variety, the only way that they can guarantee you that's a Granny Smith or that that's a Red Delicious or whatever, the only way is it has to be a clone. It has to be a graft. So if it's got a specific variety, it's been grafted. And you can look and you can see the wound that's usually a year or two old, and they're pretty darn close, pretty low, pretty darn close to the soil line. So I'm, again, learning. So I'm going between a couple of buds where I've got enough meat and enough clean. And since this makes a V, I'm trying to really center that V in the wood so I get wood on both sides when I tie it together to help stabilize it. Now, that same tool is used for cutting the rootstock, and it's used for cutting the scion because it does both. So here's what it does. On this particular one, where's the camera at? You see there's the end. Okay, so it's just kind of cutting a V, and it's exposing a significant amount of that cambium. Okay, so that's what I cut off of it, and then this is what you get, this little saddle on the rootstock. And there's some, like I said, some of the other cutters have slightly different profiles. Now what I want to do is I want to find a scion that's approximately the same diameter so that it fits well and you get as much contact of that cambium on both of them. So the more the cambium, the better. Make sure you have it oriented correctly so the buds are going up. Take a nice kind of straight piece, and I'm going to use, and this I'm going to toss off to the side because I don't want to get confused and use it. So I'm going to find, like I said, approximately, and do the same kind of cut. It's exactly the same thing. Okay, on this one, the saddle, I'm going to toss that, and I want at least 3 to 4 buds left on this one. So here's 1, 2, 3, there's about 4, so that's a pretty good size. Cut that on straight. Now I don't want that to dry out and cause problems. So I have some tree wound. Got the lid off. I'm just going to dip that in there, and that's just going to seal the end of that. Okay, that's just going to seal that so it doesn't dry out. I'm going to stick that to the side for a second. Now, how am I going to join these? There's many, many, many ways. I've tried rubber bands, but with just 2 hands, it's difficult for me to hold the join and a rubber band. That's the whole thing. I don't have a vise or anything to hold it, and I've got just 2 hands, and that thumb's got quite a bit of arthritis, so it's kind of hard to pinch. I tried using just tape first, and I mean, it held it great. Only problem was, and it's this white Clark's grafting tape from Eaton Brothers. It held it great, but the problem was at some point that needs to come off, and if after I tried to peel it off, it peeled the bark off because I'm putting adhesive right on a very tender bark. Not a good idea. So the only other way I would be able to use that directly on it would be when it's time for it to come off, or to, because it doesn't give. You know, the tree's gonna try to grow and it's gonna be compressing it, and that's gonna cause problems. might be to come through with a sharp knife and slit it in 2 or 3 places, and that way it's kind of like in nursing and stuff like that, on wounds, when you start having a lot of swelling and stuff, sometimes they'll cut the skin to give it room to swell so it doesn't cut off circulation. But what would be better would be wrapping something that'll help hold it a little bit, be watertight so it doesn't dry out, but also won't stick to it. So I'm using parafilm. You can get the parafilm in these strips, and I'm pre-stretching it, and it takes a little while to kind of get to know how much you can stretch it without it breaking. Okay, and the colder it is, the faster it snaps. So I'll kind of pre-stretch about that much. Take that off. I'll take my rootstock, and starting below the saddle cut, what I'm calling a saddle cut anyway, because that's kind of what it looks like, I'll go ahead and put 3 or 4 wraps. Okay, get it nice and anchored. Then I take my scion and I just slip it in there. And then it's just a matter of carefully turning it so that that parafilm is going to help hold the scion in place, that the cambium between the two are going to match up. Let's see if I can get this where you can see. Where the cambium matches up, and then it wraps it kind of pressing those little wings on that saddle and holding it in place. And the more of it that I get wrapped and the more stable it is, the stronger I can pull, the tighter I can make that union. And I'll make sure I go well above it. Try not to move it too much because I don't want to cause more tissue damage than I have to. And I just, however long my piece is, I just go up and down 2 or 3 times. Again, this is basically just like bandaging a wound in some respects. You want to keep it clean. You want the margins to be in contact so that new cell growth can take hold. I don't want it to dry out. Okay, so I've got that. Now that's all good and well, but that parafilm is not self-cleaning. So if I let go of this, in very short order, it's going to start unwrapping. So it's got it mechanically held together, it's got it waterproofed, all that kind of stuff, but it's not secure. So then I go back to my grafting tape, and I'll hold it between my knees, because again, I've only got 2 hands. Pull off a decent little section here, nice sharp knife. Now this is there to add a little bit more strength and stability, but also really there to keep that parafilm in place. Okay? So there, that is my graft. Now I got to do something with it. So I've got these big, made in China, of course. They are HDPE plastic number 2. From says Corvallis, Oregon. Stew and Sons, STUEWE and Sons Incorporated is the company. The mod is a tree pot, a 6x16, so 6x16 tree pot. They've even got a phone number on here, 800-553-5331. 800-553-5331. It is a TP 616, so tree pot, 6x16. Stew, STUEWE W.E. and Sons, Corvallis, Oregon. Okay, so next, I just start filling it. It's got holes in the bottom, okay? But this stuff, once packed in, doesn't really go through. It's just good enough for drainage. Don't do this at the kitchen table. If you're married, your wife or husband or whoever is going to get a little aggravated, probably. Okay, so 1.5 cubic feet has done 4.5 of these tree pots. So I've got it about 2/3 full. I'm going to let it tamp down a little bit and settle. Got another bag here, ready. Okay, so I've got it filled to about right there. Okay, now I'm going to take my rootstock, maybe make a little bit of a hole in there, and try to get those roots down nice and deep. And I'm sticking it pretty much all the way down in there for right now. Start putting more mix on top, hold those roots down. Now my goal is actually to have the crown pretty close to the top. And I've got the crown about 4 to 6 inches below right now. So how am I going to do that? In fact, I've got pretty much the join right at the top. So once I've got it in there, got it tamped down a little bit, I'm going to grab below the join. I don't want to grab the scion and pull it out of the join. I want to grab below it, and I'm going to pull up a little bit, pull it up and out. And I'm tamping it, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to leave those longer roots down below and get them kind of straighter and stuff, and let the mix, potting mix, get in around those roots as I pull it up a little bit. And then when it gets up enough it's kind of floppy, I'll add some more mix. And if people have other ways and definitely improvements, let me know. I'm learning. This is a practice. I'm documenting this not so much to teach, because I don't think I know enough to teach. Maybe I'll pique your interest. I'll take that. But I'm doing this a lot just to kind of document for myself when I did this and how I did it, so that if I have failures, which is where we learn the most from, or successes, then I can go back and say, okay, that worked or that didn't work. How did I do that? And not just try to rely on some chicken scratching that I probably can't even find next year, any notes next year. And even if I could find them, I might not be able to read them. Okay, so there it is, grafted and planted. The next 2 steps are, move this up a little bit, to take a label, and I'll put the name of the rootstock on one side and some other description. If I know the variety, I'll write it on the other side. If I don't know, like on this one, I'm just going to put apple front yard. I write those in a wax pencil. Okay, a wax pencil seems to last for me pretty good, and this wraps around it. And then I take them down and water them in well, especially over the course of a couple of days. And I am putting these, I'm trying to remember from the book that I read, don't put these directly out in full sun. So at the house that I'm at right now, there is a balcony, you go outside and there's kind of a balcony, a walkway, whatever you want to call it. and then a second story underneath it, and it's on the north side of the house. So I'm tucking these up against the house on the north side under that walkway or under that balcony thing, so that they're pretty much in full shade, but still out in the air, because I want to give time for that wound to start healing and for them to start having the capillaries, the flow of fluids and nutrients to be created before either the rootstock really starts trying to go into bloom or the scion. I want that wound to heal before it really starts trying to grow. So give them 2 or 3 weeks, if at all possible, under there before I ever put them out in the sun. And then I'm watering it with rainwater. So this is my parents' house, and I have taken one of the downspouts and made a rain barrel out of an IBC and some other components, following a rainwater course that I'm taking as well, from Verge Permaculture. And so I've got a 275 gallon IBC, probably getting about 250 gallons capacity out of it, that I'm using to try to water everything and do all the gardening. So that is the 5th apple. I've done 3 Granny Smiths. I'm pretty sure those are Granny Smiths from my backyard. I'm going to do 4 from this other variety, and then I've got rootstock from yet another apple tree, which I'm not sure which it is. And so I'm going to do a variety. Last thing on these tags, I'm color coding them. I bought them off of Amazon. So at this point, I've got 3 different things that I'm doing. I'm doing plums, pears, and apples. So I'm using red color code for apple. I'm using yellow for pear, and I believe I was using a pink for plum. It's not a purple. I'm using a pink for plum, or blue, yeah. So I mean, you could use blue for blueberry, you could use, so you can kind of come up with a color code either with zip ties or these tags in addition to the writing, so that you can visually know what they are from a distance, or if the writing was to get lost or rubbed off or whatever, at least if you got the color of the tag, you may not know what kind it is, but it's an apple, it's a pear, it's a plum, or whatever else. So a lot of rambling. I hope that was at least a little bit informative, maybe a little smidge inspiring. And again, for me, it's documenting what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and why I'm doing it. And I'll post this within the next day or two, so I'll have my date correct. But it is March 22nd, or 27th, March 27th, 2022 right now.